This is a Baseball Tonight podcast for Monday, August 17th, 2026, presented by La Quinta by Wyndham. I'm Buster Olney, working from my hotel room in Pittsburgh on Monday morning. We've got the Pirates against the Tigers on ESPN on Monday evening. We just flew in very late from Chicago on Sunday night. Eduardo Perez and myself, after we saw the Cardinals and Cubs play the final game of their series. Taylor and Kenny are back in Bristol. Let's get to it. Today we'll be talking with Tim Kurkjian about the incredible debut of Joshua Baez of the Cubs, who homered in his first 3 at-bats in the majors. We'll discuss the great performance by Jacob Misiorowski and an interesting situation developing with Shohei Ohtani. If Mark Walters leaves as Dodgers owner, could he opt out of his contract? But first, some notes and highlights from Sunday. After Misiorowski won on Saturday, the Brewers won on Sunday. Logan Henderson was excellent for 7 innings, and the Dodgers played a sloppy game. Afterward, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts expressed his frustration.
And so I think that urgency of every single pitch is important. I don't think that we have that intent. And some guys are scuffling at bat with their swings and things like that, which is real. But I think other guys are not valuing every single pitch. This has been, 4, 5, 6 weeks of, below average production from our offense. It's the truth. And I just think that we just haven't played clean baseball for quite some time, and that speaks to the defense and, not converting it out to then, our pitcher potentially could cost our starter an inning, which it has. So those things, that's just not winning baseball.
So the Brewers take that series. That's important, of course, because of the seeding in the National League. The Padres continue to roll. They hit 4 homers on Sunday.
Bybee will deliver, and Rengifo swings, hits it in the air towards the right center field gap. Nobody going to catch this one, and it's going to go. Home run, Luis Rengifo. And to the pitch, and Sheets swings. He launches one in the air deep to right field. DeLauder is back at the wall. This one going to go. Back to back for Rengifo and Sheets. And the Padres take a 2-0 lead.
And Taylor's Orioles had a great weekend against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Orioles are back in the playoff picture despite being sellers.
2-pitch. Pete drills this into left field. That's a base hit. It's heading for the corner. Mayo around third base. They're going to wave in Holiday. Holiday coming home to score, and he will do it standing. A 2 RBI double for the Polar Bear, and it's 3-1 Baltimore.
Tim Kurkjian covers baseball for ESPN. And Tim, I get the rare privilege today to talk to you when you're in a place really, really far away. Where the heck are you?
Yeah, I'm in Kimberley, British Columbia at a wedding. My nephew got married. And so Spencer and Siobhan got married on Saturday. And the wedding, Buster, took place at the top of a mountain. And I'm talking about way up in the air. So there were 2 ways to get to the top of the mountain, and almost every person went on the ski lift. But of course, I am afraid of heights. I'm afraid of widths. I am scared to death of heights. It's a phobia. I'm not even comfortable being this tall, Buster. So I did not go up on the chairlift. 5 of us total from the wedding went up in a car, and it was windy and it was rocky and it was really uncomfortable, but at least it was rooted to the ground. And then the trip up was so bad that the 3 people who went in the backseat, they took the ski lodge thing down. Like they and I still took the car down. So I was the only one at the wedding who went up and down without getting on that ski lift because I'm so afraid of heights. How bad is that, Buster? I'm a grown man and I'm afraid to go on a ski lift. What does that mean?
Well, I was going to say, you're really happy for your nephew. I know how much family means to you, so you're really happy for them, and you're thrilled to go to the wedding. But I bet you there's a part of you that's incredibly relieved it's over.
Yes, well, I'm so happy that I don't have to get on. And the bride, Siobhan, who's so beautiful, she went on the ski lift in her wedding dress. with a long train and everything else. And here I refused to get on it, and I had to get in a car to go up and down. It was so bad. So poor
Well,
Papa.
I've got stories about being afraid of heights. There's a, if you go to Yosemite National Park, the big mountain there is Half Dome. And I hiked 11 miles to get up to Half Dome, and I got to the top. And the last 100 yards or 150 yards, Tim, are on a rope ladder, and the drop to the right is about a half mile down to the floor of the valley. And I'm like, nope, I'm out. And so I got to almost to the top of Yosemite, and I just said, that's it. I'm not doing that. And you've got, old men and women, 80 years old, going up and down this rope ladder, probably 12-year-old kids, they're doing it. I'm like, nope, I am not doing it. So I completely relate to your situation with heights.
No, I'm worse. I'm worse than you, Buster. I used to get vertigo when I would drink high C as a kid, so that was enough for me. I'm out.
All right, we got tons to get to today. First off, and you have to start with, which, I'm getting asked the question, is Joshua Baez's debut in Wrigley Field on Saturday the greatest debut of all time? And I was like, well, I don't know how you top it. Like, if you hit home runs in your first 3 home runs in your first game, just amazing.
Yeah, he's the first player ever to do that, as we know. He's the first Cardinal since Albert Pujols to hit a home run in 3 consecutive at-bats of any game, and that was in 2006. And he did it in his first 3. I mean, he did it in his first 3 at-bats in the major leagues. It's unbelievable. 9 different guys have hit 2 home runs in their first major league game. He's the first to do 3. The previous record for fewest games before you hit your first 3-homer game is 10, which is amazing. You had Orestes Aquino guy and Bobby Estalella it was their 10th major league game when they had a 3-homer game. And Buster, it still just amazes me that David Ortiz, Gary Sheffield, Rafael Palmeiro all hit 500 homers. They had 1,600 homers combined, never had a 3-homer game. And this kid, aged 23, walks into Wrigley Field, hits the first pitch he sees for a homer, and has a 3-homer game. Hank Aaron had 1 3-homer game. Joshua Baez is as many as Hank Aaron, and he's played 1 game. And there were 30 family members there to see it. Buster, without being corny, this is why we cover baseball for a living, is that these things happen. I say it all the time. Every night you go to a major league ballpark, you might see something you've never seen before. Well, no one has ever seen what that kid did on Saturday. Just fascinating.
And there was a great group picture of that family after the game, on the field at Wrigley Field. So cool. He's in the middle, of course, just beaming. I texted with Oli Marmol, the Cardinals manager, right after the game, and I said, what's the mental snapshot you're going to take back? And he goes, the smirk that he gave after his first home run. And when he got back to the dugout, he said, this kid loves to compete. So he's saying he expects success in the big leagues. And I'm sure that at some point someone's going to say to him, yeah, the wind was blowing out in Wrigley. Yeah, it's not going to be that way every day. But, his home runs, especially the first 2, were basically no doubters. 449 feet. What an interesting trajectory for this kid in his career. He's a 2nd-round draft pick out of high school in Brookline, Massachusetts. And he, playing through the minor leagues, Tim, he was a stolen base guy. If you look at his numbers, he had 1 year where he stole 54 bases. Other years were stealing 30, and he's hitting 10 home runs. And then last year in 2025, he had 20 home runs. And this year, he had 34 home runs in AAA at age 23 before he got the call-up. And, man, he's a big, burly kid. He told reporters after the game yesterday that there was this bee following him around during the game, and he's convinced it was the presence of his late father, whose nickname was El Bronco.
Right.
So you get a sense of that there might be some more home runs to come, Tim.
Yeah, I think so. But again, Buster, it just proves again the light goes on and players change. He's only 23 and he's gone from more of a speed guy to a power guy in such a short amount of time. This is why baseball is the best. These things happen like this, and you just slap your forehead and say, "How in the world could that have happened?"
All right, an amazing game in Los Angeles. Jacob Misiorowski against the Dodgers. I did radio here on Sunday morning with Aaron Goldhammer, and he made a point. He said, Jacob Misiorowski last night, not his best outing. And I pushed back and I said, I think Aaron does a great job. But I said, look, I actually think this is one of his best outings that I've ever seen because he came out of the gates, Tim. And I know you were at the wedding. But he came out of the gates. Ohtani comes up for his first plate appearance, and he had full lather adrenaline. Misorowski, he's throwing 104 miles an hour. It is mono v mono, and he strikes out Ohtani. And as Misorowski, talked about that after the game, he had this great grin on his face, and he just, he loved the challenge of that moment. Well, as the game went on, you could see the Dodger hitters, this tremendous veteran lineup they have. They were making adjustments on the fastball. They were taking short, quick swings at the top of the zone. They're punching hits out to center field, to right field, and they load the bases. And here comes Ohtani with Freddie Freeman coming up behind him, Tim. And William Contreras basically decides, you know what? We're going to go with a slider. And to me, the sequence was a reminder of just how great Misorowski's fastball is. Because I've had hitters, you've had hitters say he throws so hard that you have to get started early. And
Right.
so, Ohtani swings over the top of two sliders. He strikes out, future Hall of Famer, Freddie Freeman, who doesn't strike out. He swings over the top of sliders with William Contreras making the adjustment, Misiorowski executing his secondary pitch. I loved it. Like, I thought it
Right.
was one of the best performances I've seen because he had some adversity, he worked through it.
Right. And again, Buster, this is the strength of this kid is he doesn't just throw this hard. His changeup is pretty good. His slider is really good. He has secondary stuff that he really doesn't need until he needs it. And then he can find it. And the key is he can throw a strike with any pitch in his arsenal. It's like Adam Ottavino told us. He said he throws so hard you can't hit him. But he also throws so many strikes that you have to swing the bat. And that's how he gets his strikeouts is he's always in the strike zone with that stuff. And that's what makes him so good. That's why right now he's the best pitcher in baseball and he's going to win the Cy Young in the National League. And he is appointment viewing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the best pitcher in baseball. He's a front runner to be the National League Cy Young Award winner. And man, I don't think you can overstate the importance of this series. Any series now between the teams at the top, whether it's the Brewers, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Cubs, because I think the number one rule in the National League right now is you do not want to be the number 3 seed. I mean, you want one of those number 1 or number 2 seeds because you don't want to face perhaps the San
Until the
Diego
National League
Padres.
Championship Series, right? Yes.
You do not want to face the San Diego Padres. You do not want to face the Philadelphia Phillies in a best-of-3 series.
Right.
That would be the most challenging path for the Dodgers or the Cubs or the Brewers or any team.
Right. Absolutely. It's fascinating pennant races that we have, especially in the National League, because there's some really good teams in the National League.
All right, the Dodger closer situation has been a topic of conversation lately because Edwin Diaz has been so bad since coming off the injured list. More than 2 runs per inning, or 2 batters hits and walks per inning since he came off the injured list after having elbow surgery. Tim, I'm getting asked about this a lot, and I put my concern level at a 3 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 because I think that, first and foremost, the Dodgers lived this last year. Like, they know how to deal with
Right.
issues at the back end of their bullpen. 2, Edwin Diaz could figure this out. He's still, early in this recovery from surgery. And once he finds his fastball command slider, he could go back to being a dominant closer. They just have so many options with their pitching staff that whether it's Edwin Diaz or somebody else, there's going to be somebody good coming out to finish games in October. What do you think?
Right. And Buster, I'm at a 2 on the concern level
Yeah.
because they won the World Series last year without a bullpen, and they took their excess starters, and no team has more excess starters than the Dodgers when, of course, everyone is healthy. They will find somebody to get the final 3 outs of any game moving forward, but I think it's going to be Edwin Diaz because, Buster, he's been out a long time. It takes a while to get your rhythm back and your timing back. The only mild concern is I was told a couple of years ago when they took the sticky stuff away, he was one of the guys that really suffered from that because he couldn't spin that slider like he was used to doing. But I think he's going to figure this out, and I think they're going to figure this out, and I think they're going to get to October with a tremendous pitching staff at the back end of the bullpen and in the starting rotation.
I'm in Chicago. We get Cubs and Cardinals on Sunday afternoon. I got to say, I've been sort of racking my brain about this. I think that the Cubs defense is the best defense that I've ever seen. When you're talking about, elite guys from Pete Crow Armstrong, who might be the best outfielder that he certainly is the best outfielder of this generation. He might be the best outfielder. He's in that conversation for maybe the best ever. You've got Alex Bregman at third base. You have Dansby Swanson. You have Nico Horner. Michael Busch, I think, at first base is very underrated. Ian Happ's really good. The metrics say Suzuki's doing a good job in right field. What are you seeing in the Cubs defense?
Well, it's clearly the best defense in baseball right now. And it's the infield defense that is the separator, even though PCA, according to Craig Counsell, is the best defensive player on the planet at any position. And he might be right about that. But Buster, when you're a pitcher in this day and age, and you look around and you think, if I put a ball in play here, it's not going to get caught. And it will affect you tremendously. But it'll affect you even more when you look around and say, if I put a ball in the grass here, we're going to get a double play and I'm going to get out of this inning. That's how good the defensive infield is for the Cubs. And, Craig Counsell told me that, there are pitchers around the league. And Jed Hoyer told us that on the podcast one night, that there are pitchers around the league who are telling Cubs players, we want to come play for your team. So we have that infield behind us. As for the greatest infield or defense I've ever seen, again, I grew up in Maryland, so I saw Brooks Robinson, Mark Belanger, Davey Johnson, and the vastly underrated Boog Powell with Paul Blair in center field. That's still the best defensive team I've ever seen. But this Cub defense is fabulous, and it's going to carry them a long way because it's the one thing, biggest cliche ever, defense shows up every day, and that defense for the Cubs is fabulous.
And just in doing some reporting on their defense to prepare for this game, a couple things really stood out to me. One, how the excellence, the individual excellence allows the coaches who do the positioning to do different things. For example, Pete Crow Armstrong covers so much ground going into the gaps, right? That you can, if you're Quentin Berry, you can fan out your corner outfielders. You can fan out Ian Happ. You can fan out, say a Suzuki, play him closer to the line. And the other thing, too, is you definitely get that sense that this is a group that feed off each other and this identity where, for example, the pre-pitch concentration, they have that the Dustin Pedroia, jump step or guys are moving. It's like there's a competition among them in carrying out, their share of the defense. It's much in the same way that, you see a rotation sometimes you can have internal competition. Not that, guys are trying to beat out a teammate, but they're pushing each other. And that's the feeling of what I'm seeing with the Cubs.
Yeah, Michael Busch is a good first baseman, but the other three in the infield are all baseball IQ guys of the highest order, led by Nico Horner. I remember Brian Butterfield when he was a coach with the Cubs, and he was probably on the way out. And he said, if this is my last year with the Cubs, I will at least be able to say that I got to work with Nico Horner. And what an honor that was for a coach to work with an infielder who had that good of an idea of how the game is supposed to be played. And the shortstop and the third baseman are much the same way. Vastly underrated how important defense is today.
All right. I want to talk about Kade Anderson, who is this unbelievable prospect. He was the third pick in the draft in 2025. He's absolutely dominating, Tim, to a degree that I can't remember seeing with a pitching prospect. He has a strikeout to walk ratio of 10-1. He has an ERA barely over 1. And of course, Mariners fans are clamoring for his promotion. And from what I understand, if they were to suffer a significant injury in the rotation, he probably at that point would be called up. But here's a factor with the Mariners that they have to think about as we go down the stretch. And I think every team with their top prospects have to think about. We talked about the looming possibility, certainty almost, of a lockout on December 1st. And then we're going to, might lose time for the labor situation next spring. If the Mariners put Kade Anderson, he's not on their 40-man roster right now, but if they put Kade Anderson on their 40-man roster, and they play out the season, they go into a lockout, they can't have contact with that player. Now, if in fact they don't promote him down the stretch here, and with the Mariners falling back as you and I speak, they're 8 games under 500. If the Mariners don't promote him for like a 2-inning relief role at the end of the year, they can continue working with him and have him start in the minor leagues at the beginning of next year, even if there is a labor stoppage. And that to me is not a minor consideration, Tim. And in some ways, and I get it, every player wants to reach the big leagues. But I also would think that for somebody like Kade Anderson, you want to continue to pitch 2027, whether it's early in the year or, a third of the way through the year, midway through the year, after the labor situation is settled, you would hit the ground running. That, to me, if you're Kade Anderson, might have more value than, getting a few appearances at the end of 2026.
Right. Now, if the Mariners were in the race in a little bit more of a forceful way right now, I think you have to bring him up, and he
Yep.
might be that guy down the stretch that pitches you into the playoffs and then is a very useful person in October. But if you're not in that situation, and I think at the moment the Mariners don't appear to be in that situation, I think you're right. I think you need to keep him where he is because the minor leaguers this year now, they have their own union. So they can play baseball next spring in real spring training games and improve their game. But if they're on a major league roster and they're a part of the major league CBA, they're not going to be able to play in those games. So I need my best prospect. Unless he's going to help us get to October and do something there, I'm keeping my best prospect in the minor leagues because it's going to be helpful for him next spring. You can't take a young guy and suddenly he doesn't play anymore because he's not allowed to because he is locked out by the players. I would keep as many minor
the
leaguers
owners,
as
yeah.
I could. Yes, I would keep as many minor leaguers as I could on the minor league CBA, which will allow them to play in minor league games next spring.
So to repeat, I think you and I are on the same page. If you're not contending for a playoff spot in August and September, you should. There's a lot of reason to think that it'd be best to keep your best minor leaguers off the 40-man roster rather than promote them for a few at bats in September.
Right. Just another complication from a potential lockout, Buster. There are so many things to keep in mind here, and this is not a small one.
All right. And this was another situation that's come up in recent days. Mark Walters, the Dodgers owner, is reportedly under investigation. And there is language in Shohei Ohtani's contract through which, under certain circumstances, if Mark Walters or Andrew Friedman leaves, then Ohtani could opt out of his contract. And stories emerged the other day that it's unlikely that Ohtani would do this. And when I read this, first off, I was like, the word unlikely doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's not a yes, he's not going to, or yes, he's going to, or no, there's absolutely no chance he would do something. So that word really doesn't mean anything. The other thing too is, I'm talking with a bunch of agents other than Nez Balelo, who represents him. They were like, of course you would explore it. Like, what a point of leverage for a guy who is considered in baseball, Tim, to maybe be the most underpaid player in the sport, in sports. When you look at the magnitude of what Ohtani has accomplished, his popularity internationally, of course, if there's an opportunity to opt out of this deal, at the very least, you want to rewrite another deal with the Dodgers and get more money for your client. You have to explore this.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt, Buster. When agents get involved here, and they're really good at this, the one thing they never want to happen is to have a restriction of movement on their players. And anything that gives them more movement is a good thing for the players. And that includes opting out or whatever. Look, I expect Shohei Ohtani to play the rest of his career with the Dodgers, but he has to look at this, and everyone else has to look at this like, yes, an opt out is possible. They build a new contract. He stays there, but he gets more money. This is just how it works now, Buster. If you can get more money and stay in the same place and contractually you're allowed to do that, I think you absolutely have to explore that.
Yeah, and shame on us in the media. There's this perception the deal is for $700 million, because so much is deferred. The actual real value dollar is 461 million. Here's the actual language of Otani's contract. That the termination of the deal would coincide with the removal or termination of A, Mark Walters, managing partner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, or B, Andrew Friedman is a senior baseball operations employee of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the language is removal or termination. That doesn't mean that if Mark Walters decides to sell his portion of the Dodgers the way he did the Lakers, that that maybe that language doesn't apply. But if you're the agent, you're absolutely going to explore that, and you can say, look, under the circumstances, we're going to pursue this thing, and we do this all, in quiet meetings initially. And agents are telling me you certainly would use the threat of this to get Ohtani more money up front because he's worth so much more than what he's being paid by the Dodgers, currently with his contract with so much deferred. Maybe the adjustment is if you're the agent, you say, okay, we're going to reduce the amount of deferred money that you give him, and we're going to cut it significantly to improve the overall value of the contract. There are a lot of ways to do that. And as I say, as a language contract, it might actually be difficult to get out of it, but you have an opportunity to use this as a threat. And the Dodgers would fight to keep Ohtani.
Of course, they'll do everything they can to keep Ohtani, and if that means upgrading that contract somehow, they will do it because, as we know, he's not just the most amazing player anyone's ever seen, but the money that he brings into the organization with everything involved internationally, they need him as much as he needs them.
Yeah, I think relative to the rest of sport, Tim, my comparison is to Babe Ruth. At the time, he was making $100,000, and a lot of other players in baseball were making a whole lot less than that. What's the old line? When Babe Ruth was asked about his contract, you're making more than the president, who at the time was Herbert Hoover, and he said,
Right.
well, I had a better year. Which, by the way, he did.
Right. Of course he did. Yes. We forget about Babe Ruth. I think on this date in baseball history, or right around here, he and Walter Johnson, I went to Walter Johnson High School, of course, like hooked up in a 12-inning, 1-0 game with Babe Ruth out pitching Walter Johnson. So let's not forget. I'm a hopeless minority on this. If there was a DH in 1920 in the American League, Babe Ruth would have hit 50 homers and won 20 games. So nothing against Shohei Ohtani. There's never been anybody like him, but there was never anybody like Babe Ruth, no one even close that many years ago.
All right, Tim. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for getting up early to knock this out. Safe travels back, and don't look out the window when you're on the plane.
No, I'm not afraid on the plane. I'm never afraid of flying because I can't fall. But I could have fallen off that ski lift the other day, and that wouldn't have been good.
All right, Bleacher Tweets here on Monday. We got a few good ones. We'll roll right into them. First one comes from Noah. He says, hey, BBTN team. First, wanted to thank you guys for getting me through residency. In this lost Mets season, I was wondering why Francisco Lindor's defense has taken a nosedive. He used to be a Gold Glover, and he's currently running out as a value negative shortstop based on OAA. Is there any hope he can return to being a good defender? Thanks.
Well, there definitely is a hope that he can get better than where he is now, which is -3 in outs above average, the number that you cited. He's also -3 in defensive runs saved. I'd say this, down through history, the numbers defensively for shortstops with advanced metrics get pretty stark when a shortstop hit their early 30s. And Lindor, he's going to turn 33 later this year. I mean, that's the way it goes. The old saying, "Father Time is undefeated." And so at some point, maybe the Mets will have to make an adjustment. I certainly have seen shortstops, and Mookie Betts being a great example of this, where he just made up his mind in 2025 he was going to get better at shortstop. He put in tons of work. You could see him out there every day. Maybe there's something Lindor can do to push back, but the slide is not unusual, and it's not. And I know Francisco well enough to know it's not because of a lack of effort. It'll be interesting to see how he responds to those, the sliding defensive numbers.
Absolutely. And thanks, Noah, for choosing the BBTN podcast to get you through your
Yeah.
residency.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. Next one we have is from Eric. Obviously, the Mariners have had a tough season relative, I think, to everyone's expectations. And so he says, if the Seattle Mariners don't make the playoffs this year with this team, can we finally admit it is a cursed organization? And can we put a name on the curse so we could take steps to reverse it like Boston or Chicago? I've been saying it for years. It is unexplainable.
So they did reach Game 7 of the American League Championship Series last year, but maybe that's part of the evidence that there is a curse. I don't really believe in curses. I think they're just kind of a fun conversation. But if you have ideas as a Mariners fan to name a curse, we're open to them. In fact, all listeners, if you have some suggestions as to what we should call the Mariners curse, we are here for you. We'll pull them together and we'll present them in another edition of Bleacher Tweets here in the week ahead.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. And maybe once we finally name it, the Mariners still have time this year to turn it around. So you never know.
You never know.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for sending in the Bleacher Tweets. Appreciate it as always. And all bleachertweets@gmail.com. We're always looking at them.
All right. Thanks for watching the Baseball Tonight podcast presented by La Quinta by Wyndham. Tonight, La Quinta, tomorrow you shine. And my thanks today, Kenny Legan, Terrence Williams, Taylor Schwenk, everyone back in Bristol who works on this podcast. My thanks to Tim Kurkjian getting up and overcoming his fears with it, going up to the wedding to join us early on a Sunday morning. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. And remember, hate and inequality based on skin color is something we need to fight against every single day.